Welcome back to the most professional StarCraft 2 with a 3-time world champion, the Zerg in the red, the finisher. It's Serral, facing off against by far his greatest rival, the closest he's ever been to overtaking Serral for the rank 1 slot worldwide. In the blue, the Terran from Team Liquid, it's Clem, in a best-of-5 Terran versus Zerg semifinals to the Homestory Cup 28, a $10,000 tournament. And before we get started, it'd be incredible if you could smash that like button, or maybe even subscribe. And we gotta be algorithm. And Jimmy, what are we at? Jimmy. 1,796 likes on this video, on this cast. And I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I'd do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far, and hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better as we get things started with the first Reaper picking off one of the Zerglings right off the bat. And more Zerglings already taking quite a hit. An SCV block in the third because Clem with every single unit, and I'm talking every single unit, pushes them to infinity and beyond, alongside the potential balance complaints. But even the first SCV for scouting that Serral's doing a relatively normal timing on his hatchery will make sure there is no normal timing for the third. As the drone gonna try to chew away at the very first one. The Reaper is coming back to try to block it. The Queen is it? No. Okay. All right. Almost sometimes been accused of being too, and I quote, dummy thick. But this time around able to get slightly out of the way as the Reaper has absolutely no cares in the world. Slides in through the employee entrance, pokes into the main, confirms Zergling speed is on the way, and confirms it's time to get out of there. So, Serral able to get his third in something resembling a timely manner, but some damage even adds the grenade. And the Master Oncologist knocks out the very first creep tumor. And getting the very first one is somewhat lore accurately the most important, because everyone past that is exponential. 2 creep tumors near each other actually spread almost twice as fast, though it drops off dramatically past that. So getting the very first tumor, especially as Serral is just now taking his third, is both emotionally devastating and has significant repercussions as time goes on. There's a reason that Clem puts such a focus on it. Then again, it seems like he puts such a focus on everything. A lot of Zerglings for Serral. He has 13 of them out so far. Maybe gonna try to bait this in. The Queens will be bounced around, but the drones, with that lack of creep, it's a bit... The drones actually have to sit there waiting for the Queens to stoically march over off the creep and eventually be protected. Though I wouldn't put it past Clem to go past the Queens. Now, on the other side of the map, the Zerglings will slip by, and it's a 3-2-1-1. 3 command centers, 2 barracks, 1 factory, and 1 starport. Getting 2 medevacs out early with a bunch of stim marines and keeping the pressure on the Zerg as soon as possible while still having a more than capable economy. It is a difficult build to stay on top of, but if you can stay on top of the Zerg, that's even better. Lair very quickly for Serral, at least in the grand scheme of things, and he's building 3 more gas geysers very early on. No evolution chambers yet. Could we see Mutas? Quite a muta risk, though, against someone like Clem, but there's a chance. There's no evolution chambers. He has to be going for something very heavy on the tech early. Wow, gas geysers 5 and 6. There is done. What's it gonna be? Yes, yeah, Overlord gets taken out as it was spying on the pervert pillar. Serral. Two Evo chambers kind of hidden away. Wow. Wow. Anti-scan. He's putting them where a scan on the main should never spot. He's hiding the most basic tech, which is like the extent of Serral's dramatic strategies here. The Queens. Unfortunately, the Frenchman knows all about taking out the Queens, and right on the edge of the creep, guns down 1. A revolutionary tactic, but the 4th base is delayed. The Zerglings can't really engage. Serral his tech is done. He already has the Evo chambers and the Hydra Den, but Clem's putting on so much pressure. Go to the Clem camp for just a moment as he takes out one of them. He takes out 4 drones. He keeps the 4th base under control, delays it dramatically, and Serral just completely stalled his build. In an uncharacteristic fashion, not keeping up on everything back at home. He hasn't started any of the Hydra upgrades. He's still dueling with the medevacs over to the left side. You need those Hydra upgrades. Like, the range and the speed, that's a stock version of the Hydras. That's like selling you the Xbox without the controllers. Shut up. Back in my day, we played Xbox. I don't care about your PlayStations or your Switches. Anyways. Or your decks. Moving on. But Hydra Rage is the first choice. Serral? Kind of scrambling for a general defense. He has 66 drones, which is less than the much nicer 69 that Clem has already been able to pump out of SCVs. The creep is starting to work its way across the map, but Clem just finished 1-1. And with the upgrade advantage, those Marines can compound it dramatically. As nothing fires fast. I am pretty sure that Marines with stim fire faster than, or attack faster than Zerglings with adrenal glands. Not 100%, but close enough to say it was something resembling authority. So the Hydra count, though, Serral has leaned so far into the Hydras, he actually has quite a supply lead. And you cannot underestimate them en masse. Hydras, the most dramatic plot device in every StarCraft 2 cinematic. I'm not joking. Look it up. Probably StarCraft 1 as well. And now, he's already 25. What? 25 Hydras. So, Serral was certainly cooking. A bit of a slow burn, but 25 Hydralists with barely more agility than the Queens themselves. As they're kind of tripping over one another, which is something that the Hydras can't really do, but that could you move? Hello? Oh, Brenda, they don't know what they're doing. Well, that makes 2 of us, Susan. I don't... Sorry, I blacked out for... So, despite the difficulties early, I think Serral has a solid enough army. He's getting the infestation pit, a potential to work up towards Hive, and Clem is adding a bunch of Widow Mines, maybe underestimating the level of commitment to the Hydraling Bane, as Widow Mines are less than ideal. Siege tanks are usually the preferred choice, as they can stay out of range of the Hydras, whereas Hydras outrange the Widow Mines themselves. Of course, they're more for zoning out the flood of Zerglings and Banelings that Clem is looking to outflank now over to the right side. Concussive shells is not done, so not able to tag the Banes and take them out, but Clem is setting himself up for the dual-pronged pressure, as Hydras might have anti-air capabilities, but they can't chase down those medevacs with their boost. Meanwhile, to the left side, the Hydra's on their own. The Marine's gonna take advantage of it. It's dangerous to go alone. He just detonated every single Bane on a single... Oh no, that was a bit of a mistake there out of Serral. And, oh, the Marine's getting dangerously close. But they get the hatchery down the center as well. There's a fusion core already on the way. That has to be for ranged Liberators. So just skipping the siege tank phase entirely, which is a bold move. But, it may work out for him, as siege tanks are a little less effective against lurkers. You'd think they're good, but lurkers are quite maneuverable compared to the tanks themselves. Even tries to come back in and save that Widowmon. Splits and... Oh! Serral taking quite a hit. Knocks out another one. Splits off. Acceptable losses. Oh no, he's looking the other way. Some big hits from the Widowmon. And Clem is maxed out before Serral even has a lurker done. Fighting down the center. The Overseer's dragging some of the hits onto the Marines themselves, but the Hydra count isn't high enough. The Marines have the upgrades. Drags out some more of the mines. The Hydra counts... I keep going back to it. 19 of them, which should be enough, but with Clem's micro. And he drops into the 3rd. Another Queen taken out. Widowmon burrowed down. Gonna require some more detection to deal with, but the Queen takes it on the chin. One of the only Zerg units that can survive to tell the tale, and I'm sure she's not happy about it. Meanwhile, Clem swinging around. He already knocked out the base down the center. Will clear out some of the creep outside the 3rd. 2 medevacs taken out of the sky as Serral reclaims a bit of the momentum. But right now, Clem has a bite of opportunity. The Marines and Marauders off the creep. Serral unable to chase them down. 4 Vipers on the way. Lurker range in production. but Clem has smoothly transitioned into a more late-game focused sort of army. He's got 3-3 almost halfway done. Advanced ballistics halfway there as well. More Widow Mines, making it very difficult for the Lings and Banes to engage the Marines and Marauders, and the Liberators forcing a full commitment that Serral simply can't win cost-effectively. Meanwhile, rolls back. Banelings try to come through. Deals with the mines. Vipers yanks out some of the Liberators. Another one thrown into the fray. The Queens join it in, and here come the Lurkers. Counterattack cuts off a few reinforcements. Serral looking to reclaim this position from Clem's semi-entrenched Liberators. And he's building 4 at a time. Mines as well. A 3rd starport is in production. The weapons of mass production are strong with the Terrans, and there's not enough energy to deal with all these Liberators. Yanks out 1, leaves 2. Autumn colors for the Marines and Marauders between the Lurkers and the Stims themselves. As I think, therefore I am, but also with this unit composition on either side, the game has to slow down, or both players risk almost instantaneous disaster if they're out of position. Clem angles off to the side. Serral does not have adrenal glands quite yet, but it's nearly completed, and the Zergling counterattack gets into the 3rd. Though a pretty nice funnel means that we don't... No! The Vipers! Oh, 2 out of 3 Vipers sniped off. Serral losing control of things as Clem too fast and arguably too furious. That's just a Terran thing, though. Both players near 500 APM average. The Zerglings completely obliterated by a Venn diagram of freedom, with 5 Liberators overlapping at the 3rd. Clem pulls back, and most notably, no Ghost Academy. Going to try to deal with the Lurkers directly with the more mobile composition as opposed to committing to the Ghosts. He's got Caduceus Reactor, the double medevac energy regen, meaning that less medevacs can do the same amount of work, arguably. And the hatchery, Blinding Cloud forces some of it forward, and there's not enough energy to follow it up, but a big Zergling counter. The Liberator's coming back to defend. Not the ideal choice. Some of the Widow Mines are taken out. Eventually, the Zerglings will be ping cushioned, and the double-digit Liberators are becoming just too much. Too much. I was trying to come up with a more profound statement, but it seemed a simpler one would suffice. And Serral agrees. A Spire is on the way. The Lurkers keeping the pressure on. And Serral has reclaimed a lot of map control. But if the Liberators are ever able to focus their efforts on his side of the map, without the Spire, it's going to be almost impossible to deal with them. Just unleashing widespread liberation. The Spire's not done. The hatchery was taken out. The income is still marginally in Serral's favor. But the Liberators, oh my, liberation is at hand. Oh, sweet liberty. And the Ghosts are on the way. Clem tearing through everything on his side of the map and moving forward with far too much. He desperately needs the Corruptors. The Liberators are... They've just annexed this entire chunk of the map. You cannot deal with this from the ground. Hydra's only cosplay an anti-air unit, and they're not very good at it. On it. Any of those things. They're just as good at anti-air as I am of describing their lack of anti-air. They're far too fragile. Nearly one-shot by the Liberators, and easily gunned down in small numbers. The Vipers. But with the Ghosts here to help zone them out. Snipe and EMP, both existential threats. Serral struggling to tread water, but he's drowning under the tide of Terran. EMPs come out, but not before the abducts. +1 flyer attack is on the way, but another Olympic ring of freedom. The Lurkers are moving forward, trying to drag Clem back. If you allow him to focus, if the eye of Clem, if it's allowed to focus on any single fight, he will win it. Very simply. The only times we see Clem under any real pressure, that he has any risk of cracking, is when there's a Nidus in the back or a huge Lurker counterattack or something that forces him to divide his attention and potentially be conquered. Still no Corruptors on the way. Still no Infestors on the field. But as the Ghost count continues to rise... Oh, he yanks in some Ghosts! A dangerous game, but he gets several of them. Lunges forward. And even though Clem has been able to put on so much pressure, it's cost him. He has lost almost as many resources as Serral, which, despite how many punches Serral has been forced to take, most of them have been superficial. He still has the economy. He still has the core of the army. He's lost only 22 Hydras, which sounds like a lot, but his first swell of Hydras had 25. So he still has most of those, though many of them may have been turned into lurkers. They're lurkers, I think, on hold position. It's unclear. No, the Hydra's lunging forward to the Liberator, trying to deny this base. There's Widow Mines scattered through. Oh, no. No. That's gonna be... That's a no. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. That's far... That is... The peacekeep... Oh. The lurkers? Wow. Hold fire on those lurkers. And he's holding on to it. They're within sensor tower range. Sensor towers do not have detection. There's no reason he should know those. He's holding on to those lurkers. Oh no, Widowmine scampering in. Serral's down to 62 drones. And dropping. Loses a couple more. He's building a few. Burrow is on the way. +3 ranged attack. He never got +3 melee. Vendaya scan now. The Liberator count is at 12. He can yank out a couple at a time. Plenty of energy for now. The ghosts aren't nearly close enough. He just wraps around the back. The Liberators are stuck at the front in full retreat. And Serral is able to dismantle the majority of this attack. And the Hydra count is too damn high. A few snipes come out, but the spines out of the Hydras will pincushion the spines of the ghosts. And they don't have nearly enough HP to survive it. Though technically they do have more than the Hydras. Trying to drag out some of the mines. Retargets, hits a Hydra. But suddenly, Serral takes the supply lead yet again. And he's moving forward. Widow Mine blasts apart some of the Banelings. But Clem is forced to rebuild some of the most expensive units. The most expensive units in his composition. The Liberators and the Ghosts. The two most important units in his army are the ones that went down en masse in that fight. He lost 9 Liberators and 9 Ghosts. As well as 10 Widow Mines. And Clem only killed 11 Hydras and apparently one of his own Ghosts. The Widow Mines don't discriminate. And Ultralis Cavern is a bold move. We'll see if it works out for him. But Serral has survived. And maybe not thrived. And he doesn't really have the economy to overwhelm Clem. But the fact he's within 1,000 resources lost is an absolute testament to his tenacity. Clem has leaned on him the entire game, but Serral just keeps finding opportunities to slip away and turn the tables. But DJ Serral's still gonna have to deal with a whole lot of this base. And yanking out the Liberators. Parasitic Bomb does not destroy Liberators in a single cast. Abducted to Hydras usually does. But, again, the liberation on the drones. 12 drones dead. I don't know what happened to the lurkers down the center, but Clem's had 200 supplies, so obviously not enough. Serral may have won several battles, but Clem's economy is still winning the war. Another lurker. Does he have vision of it there? He does. It's just very hard to deal with directly. Another lurker. A single thorn in the side. But as soon as Clem snipes it out, he can focus his efforts. The Serral Festers are on the way. There's still Widow Mines scattered throughout the field. A Liberator is camping the base in the top left corner. But, well, you certainly don't want to be down in workers and income against a Terran. But if anyone can turn that into a more viable situation. What a game. What a brawl. And Clem, he knows he dug too deep and too greedily. But thankfully, the mules were able to dig out enough minerals from his bases that he's able to kind of slow things down, batten down the planetaries, rebuild the Liberators, and he can't wow. Serral burrowed an entire army like this is a campaign mission. But did he even... I'm not actually sure he knew that was... Well, another army is swinging in. Clem with 5 medevacs and marines. He's just going to take a baneling, but actually, he went too far. It will cost him a lot of his marines. He's diving to the back. Serral has 100 Zerglings. I don't know if he ever built... Oh, get over here! And another one! He's yanking in all the medevacs! And wow! But at the same time, Clem, these sacrifices were not in vain. He drives down the center into the heart of the swarm, and yet again, the base is taken out. 7 hatcheries dead for Serral. Somehow the only buildings he's lost, but the most important ones. That is to 0 command centers destroyed. Clem, he takes, and he does not give. He's been beaten back, but certainly not beaten down. Serral, on the other hand, is... He's at 200 supply, but just oh, come on. The Ventria scan. He has 5 orbital commands, which means he doesn't have... He's scanning for infestors in the entire county. The Queens take the brunt of the snipes. The Vipers coming in. EMP washes away the energy of the rest. And the Liberators are just big cushioning the Hydras. The Lings and Banes will run right by. Unfortunately, the Hydra's getting caught. Meanwhile, some of the Ghost Changelings to try to block in. But a double planetary fortress. The Liberators are caught looking the wrong way. And Serral might be able to hold it for now. Does he throw out a fungal to keep him there? I don't think it's worth the energy. Meanwhile, this is happening to the north side. Serral gonna lose another hatchery, looking the other way. The Liberators find another base to siege up. Serral down 30 supply. And Clem just... He keeps losing. It looks bad, but it's just a flesh wound in the grand scheme of things. It's the economy. Over and over and over again. Serral's only lost 2,000 more resources, but he hasn't really mined anymore either. Clem's done such a great job of playing whack-a-mole with the hatcheries, and of the resources lost, the difference is mostly hatcheries. Serral with the double-pronged spellcasters. Clem does have the Liberators and Ghosts to counter them, and there's 10 Ghosts, 9 Liberators, 17 Widow Mines is his most numerous army unit scattered throughout the field. And the literal minefield serving its purpose in the most literal fashion. Again, Serral, Clem reacts instantly, and another hatchery goes down with no cancel. There's a single Zergling burrowed underneath, will be taken out. The rest of the Zerglings will angrily run down. But Serral, he's about equal on army supply, which is good and bad. Mostly the second thing. He needs a decisive, overwhelming victory. Clem is bringing up... He's bringing up missile turrets with the SCVs. He yanks in 3 Liberators, but he knows. Serral needed to somehow catch the army in a fungal with a parasitic bomb and a blinding cloud with its pants down, embarrassed, and deciding to convert to pacifism. And unfortunately, that was never going to happen. Game 1. Serral loses 687 Zerglings, 50 Hydras, a dozen Vipers, 9 hatcheries, and the game. He takes out 30 Liberators, 63 Widow Mines, 200 Marines, but 0 command centers. An absolute bloodbath. A lot of bones in that trench, but most of them Zerg. Clem, and both of them, an absolute grandmaster class of top-tier StarCraft 2. One of the most technologically comprehensive and high-level games I've ever seen. But it feels like Clem got the momentum and never really lost it. It comes down to the economy. If you can't afford to replace the units you lose, then you have to win with the ones you have. And that's something that Zerg really struggles to do, just by design. I think that Serral, he got a slow jump on it. There was a point when he had a Hydra Den done and 2 evolution chambers that sat idle with the resources to use them for like 30 seconds. 30 seconds might be a long time for me and you, if you know what I mean. But for Serral, it's even longer. That was a significant percentage of the game at that point, and there's a very real chance that those upgrades, being 30 seconds late, just continued to contribute to each of the fights for the next few minutes. It allowed Clem to get to, like, 4 bases without really suffering any damage. So now Winter Madness, which I like to think you enjoy every day, and like and subscribe, but specifically here. The choice not to go for Corruptors. Now, here's the thing. The Corruptors have literally no purpose than to take out Liberators and maybe Medevacs. They are expensive. 150, 100. That's almost twice the cost of a Hydralisk. And Broodlords probably ain't it. Not on that economy. So, I feel like Serral was doing enough with the Vipers to dismantle the Liberators. I've never seen that many Liberators both be built and die while still being effective in the same game. That's probably not literally true, but the idea stands. Serral with his Vipers. Serral and the Vipers. Darmok and Jalad and Tanagra. Clem, the ghost sniping. And other profound things worth remembering, but the Widowmines serving their emotionally charged purpose of living up to their names as mines. And the thing is, mines is maybe a little bit underselling the recharging missile. No, okay. Churlish, insubordinate, get off my creep! He's not on the creep anymore, Brenda. It's... Not today, Susan. Not today. Sorry, I blacked out for the Queen. The drone tried to wait for the SCV to get out of position. Here comes the Reaper, and uh-oh. Well, the SCV body blocks the drone. My Heart of the Swarm. Wow. Perfect micro out of Clem. And he gets away with murder. He will delay the third, destroy the drone, keep the Queen off the creep, and everything lives. The SCV gets home. The Reaper will heal. And everything... This is about as bad as it could ever get to start things out. Well, it could always get worse. Don't worry. But... And... Oh, come on. 1 HP! They heal. Somehow they heal faster than the Zerg, but... 3-2-1-1 yet again. I feel this is Clem kind of taking advantage of Serral, which is something you should do in a high-profile tournament with the best 2 players in the world. But at the same time, well, Serral's gonna try a counterattack of sorts, but it's a 3-2-1-1. He's gonna go for the double medevac, and instead of the Hellion Banshee, doing the double medevac play, this is vulnerable to early aggression. You don't have a Banshee, or multiple Banshees even. So a Roach timing, a Zergling swell, they could be dangerous, but they're also risky. And Serral is a bit risk averse, which the majority of the time works in his favor. The majority of the time. Lair is halfway done. Another quick lair. I was denied the Mutas in the previous game. I'm not sure if Serral was making a judgment call on the Hydras. I think the Hydras actually worked out great. He got 25 Hydras before, like, somehow they just kind of popped out. Again, like every cinematic because they're so dramatic about it. But the double medevac pressure. Clem, like his metaphorical father, Beyond, who is not quite old enough to be potentially... Anyways, but it's kind of close. If you're like, I remember when Beyond won the World Championship against Dark. That was 10 years ago. Okay, Grandpa. That was almost half of Clem's life. Meanwhile, the Queens, again, the knitting crew forced to try to patch together a defense, and unfortunately, not able to do so as the hatchery was blocking some of them in. Serral is hard supply block, losing an Overlord, but I'm sure Clem can help him out with that. This is, it's a matter of degrees here. Clem is on his villain arc. Hive Tech Rush. The Queens. I'm walking here! Not very fast, bro. Oh, no. Get to one. Oh, that was just Terran. This is bad. The Queens getting picked off one by one, and usually the Queens are used as a sort of biological shield. So that way the drones and the hatcheries are able to stay intact. Unfortunately, losing the hatchery and losing Queens bodes ill. Infestor's on the way. Another Queen just sniped off as Clem, the most French player. He's got 70 SCVs. And Serral just rolling with the punches. Clem is just on point. He does not... Even when he loses units, it's because he's doing something more important. The prioritization. Once again, we're going to go to the Clem cam as he has to defend. Scrambles back. Meanwhile, also microing his medevacs, not willing to give up the pressure. And more Marines. He's holding the line. Dropping out. He's even putting together the push. Yes, he'll lose some SCVs, but he's not going to give Serral a moment to breathe. Oh, no! I always choose the worst moments for this, but he stands his ground because he can't do anything else. The Infestors use everything. And it's still not enough to decisively break this. He leaves a single tank behind. Almost picks it up. It's not quite enough. So Serral, it manages, and you can see from Clem's perspective how it can feel a bit stressful. Now, we can also see at the same time that Clem is up 10 supply. So, despite the dangerous feeling of this moment, despite how it seems like Serral defended and executed a counterattack, Clem comes out significantly far ahead, at least in supply. So, let's go to the Serral cam. Setting up the Zerglings. Jimmy, put the point on the board. Oh, thank you. And dealing with the counterattack, throws out the fungal. Infestor just watches it. The pain, the suffering, the tragedy. And there's really, the map is dark and full of Terrans. Sets up Ultralisk Cavern. Round of injects, in case you didn't notice it. That's what he's... as well as, yep. Injecting his hatcheries, or at least queuing them up. And the Ultralisk Cavern is on the way. Swarm mutated. Setting up the counter. Has, like, several hotkeys for Queens, Infestors. He's got the main hotkey as well as a counterattack one. Bringing the Queens into position to defend. But back to everyone. Oh! So, oh no, it's the spot. It's the spot. Oh, he brought, so Liberators with the newest patch don't have as much vision, but you just simply bring a spotter, and this Liberator cannot be touched from the ground. He needs a Viper or something to deal with it. This spot on the map is actually literally untouchable. And another Widow Mine slams in, takes out double-digit Zerglings, and reinforcements. Serral is scrambling across the board. All he needs to do is take out the medevac. I guess you could just scan for vision, as some players will do. But, very simply, yep, the Queens are lining it up. The Viper in position, get over here. Unfortunately, not a whole lot of mining time delayed to allow Clem another advantage, and he's at 200 supply. Sure, he has the Marines, the Marauders, the Medevacs, and the Mines, the M&M and M&M, and the Liberators as well. It isn't the most dangerous composition, but quantity has a quality of its own, which is something you'd usually attribute to Zerg. Infestor is getting caught. Serral looking the other way, and his counterattack, and he loses several Infestors. He'll take out a base, kill some of the SCVs, but losing the Queens and Infestors seems like a much more dramatic blow. Chitinous plating. Serral agrees. Without losing a single building. But he'll lose 300 Zerglings in 11 minutes. As well as 6 Infestors. An absolute... It went from bad to worse so quickly. From the very first Reapers, or single Reaper rather, it just felt like 10 of them. I swear it was 10 of them. It was at least 10 Reapers. They go to another school. I know. Clem just really tightening it up and knocking out Serral with relative ease. Yeah, at no point in that game did it look like Serral had any control of the situation. Game 1 at least was a little bit of back and forth, but Clem on match point. Just like that. Well, Clem one game away. And Clem has by far the highest win. He's the only player since, I want to say Serral came back from his military service. I am pulling these statistics from a very coveted place. My ass. But I've looked it up before, and I hope I'm correct. Clem, the only player since Serral came back from his military service in the later 2024, which is also when Clem defeated Serral for the World Championship a few months before. Yes, Serral during active military service in Finland, which is, I believe, around 6 months, and Serral was in a special athletics program. Well, one of the first 2 or 3 esports pros to be part of it. But I digress. Clem, the only player with over a 50% win rate against Serral. And Serral's talked about it like it's just both Raynor and Clem. Hero's different. All right, 3 games for Hero, however long that was. But it's like a swarm of bees. It may have been Raynor who said, that sounds like a Raynor comment, but both of them are so fast that Serral, who relies on, like, you might know what he's doing, but you can't necessarily stop it. That's always been the Serral who is the greatest StarCraft 2 player of all time. Better or worse, the results you cannot disagree with. It is undisputed, in my opinion. But Clem has reached such a level in... We're reaching towards that theoretical, like you'll see it in AI games, with the infinite APM, individually microing Marines, and like dodging shots with medevacs, and doing shift Q worker micro, which actually Clem does. I don't know if he learned that from the AIs that do 5,000 APM worker micro, but in the early game he will do the shift Q and quick acceleration mining, which would take a little bit too long to explain right now, but if you know, you know. And with, now, in some ways, Zerg being less potent at stages of the game when Serral is usually most dangerous, especially with the Infestor getting slapped around with a Nerf bat many times over. Thing is, well, what unit got buffed the most in the newest patch? The Baneling. And by buffed, I mean returned to its previous state of when you get Baneling speed, you get plus 5 HP. The thing is, what player is least likely to get hit by a meaningful amount of Banelings? It's not a trick question. All right, he's microing his Reaper right now. Oh, desperation / danger. I think this has combined alongside Serral taking a bit of a break to making Clem just Arguably the best player in the world, and by far the most dangerous to... So, no. Not only is Serral's build scouted, it will be undercut by simply 2 Hellions. This is an absolute unmitigated disaster. He sees the quick lair. This is a Roach speed rush, but it's not anymore. I don't think. As Serral just... He pulls the abort key on... Oh. It's not getting any better. Oh my. The queens. No! Oh, finally, Susan. This is on you too, Brenda. This is a series of unfortunate events. That implies we had no control over the situation. Certainly seems like it, Brenda. And sorry. I lagged out for... Anyway, so Serral was going for a Roach speed rush. Almost an all-in, which would kind of hard counter what Clem's been doing. It'd be great against the quick Marine drop because you don't actually have that much production, and the Marines aren't enough to stop the swell of Roaches. Unfortunately, Clem just ran in with the Reaper in the first Hellions, and he slaughtered, what, 8 drones? And that would usually not be a huge deal. But when you're on 2 bases and like 40 drones, it's certainly a big one. And now Cloaked oh my. The Cloaked Banshee. Clem went for a late Banshee, but early enough to get even more drone kills. This isn't getting any better. Like... Clem is playing so well. Clem just looks like... When Clem is on point, he looks completely unbeatable. Which may actually hold true here. Like, the micro ability of almost every single Terran unit. From Marines to Reapers to Hellions to Banshees. The amount of mileage you can get out of each one. Kilometerage even. Serral now... He's getting tunneling claws. Burrow move. And then he remembers, yeah, probably should get Burrow as well. Which is a bit quicker upgrade, I think, but... Clem, 3 racks back at home. Single upgrade. His 3rd command center significantly delayed. I'm not sure if he delayed it intentionally on seeing that Serral was on 2 base. If that was the intent all along, but the effect is the same. Which means he doesn't have that massive economic lead that you might expect. But as a reaction to what Serral was doing, still a strong one. Contaminate! On the main base, the factory, delaying any more siege tanks, which can certainly help. Burrow move Roaches can throw a wrinkle into things. But he still has to deal with this first push. A single dropper lord. Might be able to sneak those Roaches in. Knocks down an Overlord. And now Burrow move. Serral. Burrow is complete. Definitely doesn't want to reveal this before the last possible second. He hasn't yet seen the Roaches. The little indicator with their fancy extra spikes they grow for tunneling underground is a dead giveaway. But it might already be too late. Clem? Does he see it? Did he see it? Did he actually see the worm sign? It's quite apparent when you're looking for it, but it's a little bit late now. And the Roach is at the front. Clem's setting up, anticipating this direct attack, and he's right about it. A scan, but the Roaches are able to scurry away. And Serral, finding exactly what he needs. Does he not notice? He gets right on top of the siege tanks. And Serral making a mountain out of this literal molehill. 10 SCVs dead. Still much of the army committed to the main. Roaches living up to their names almost everywhere. 11 SCVs now, chasing down more of the Roaches. Scampers out of the scan. Can burrow again. Another scan. He had one in the chamber. More Roaches are chasing down these Marines. And Serral has taken the supply lead, though it's not a particularly comfortable one. He's working on 2-2. There's only 2-1 on the way for Clem. So Serral, in his first game, deviating from the more mass unit Ling Bane style, is finding success despite the trials and tribulations of the early game. The Roaches, the Dropper Lord, is ready to send a few more in. Some Overlords kind of casually strolling across the map. The big danger, yet again, is a concerted attack. As Roaches in a heads-up fight, well, they're not really designed for it. I believe the... Yeah, Clem not looking this way. This is a little awkward as the drop... Oh, did he spot it? Clem's camera went over there for a second. More Roaches trying to sneak in. Will be spotted, but the units are just a little bit out of position. There's still a Banshee racking up kills. It's got 9 kills, and I think almost all of them are drones. A few more Roaches to the north side. Roaches waiting for the reinforcements to pop out. Infestation pit is on the way, and infestors are exactly what this entree needs to tie it all together. The scans being wasted trying to hunt down Roaches. The Marines cannot kill. He doesn't have the upgrades to compete with the regeneration in the armor. But here comes Clem, the full Terran army. There are no infestors. 2-2 isn't yet done for Serral. He's about maxed out. He just puts a bunch more Roaches onto the field. But the siege tanks are an existential threat. He desperately needs these upgrades. He's gonna fight seconds before. Knocks out, oh, he saves it with the medevac. And Serral fighting just before the upgrade's complete. And the siege tank's doing terrible, terrible damage. Trying to split, knocks out one. The Marines and Marauders will stim their way through, cuts off to the side. And the Roaches and Ravagers are just crumbling under the combined firepower of the Terran army. Clem just ripping through everything, and the upgrades are the only thing keeping Serral even close to dealing with this unit composition. But the supply plummets, as do Serral's chances of turning this around and not getting swept away by his French rival. Clem playing a almost perfect, if not perfect, series. I can't point out a single direct mistake. Serral struggling to keep up with his speed. And the decision-making is on point. Yes, he took some losses, but he almost always got more gains in trade. Serral desperate to try to pull something together, but Clem still has the economy to reinforce. If he took out 40 SCVs instead of 14, maybe. But it's just not enough. The Clempire will reign supreme. The Zerg put down in every form. And Serral, no infestors, a handful of Roaches and Ravagers, and 2 Gs as Clem defeats the world champion and the rank 1 player in the world 3-0. Wow. Bringing us to our anti-spoiler game of Clem versus the rank 2 Zerg in the world, Rainer. From Big Gabe's Cup, they played like 15 games throughout. The only player in the world who well, I guess Solar on occasion, but our anti-spoiler game because, well, not even I expected a 3-0. And usually you'd expect a 3-0 in the other direction, but Clem just has Serral's number. And maybe the amount he was able to do with the Roaches, despite getting hamstrung so critically at the start. Honestly, just getting scouted was already bad. And then losing 8 drones? Significantly worse. A disaster, but Serral clawed and burrowed and slunk underneath and tried to bring it back, but Clem was not to be denied. His momentum too strong. Let's see what Rainer can do. I have guarantees this is a very different sort of game to the style. Well, Rainer does not play for the pragmatic Zerg. He plays the Swarm Zerg. In fact, he's lamented on frequent occasion how that style of Zerg, of continually reinforcing and overwhelming is almost obsolete, except for playing at extreme speed. And even then. Thankfully, Raynor is arguably and somewhat literally sometimes the fastest player in the world. The only player who competes with Clem in that department. Serral has always been about working smarter and not harder. But unfortunately, I think Clem does both. Now, like, he's no longer the headstrong. He can be. He can get frustrated, he can get tilted. We've seen it many times before, almost always against Protoss and most of the time against Hero, but especially in Terran versus Zerg. Well, he's ridiculous. Raynor, also Serral's teammate on Team Basilisk. And I mean, ever since pretty much Raynor's first big break or breakout was when he turned 16. Yeah. So back in the day, the World Championship Series, rest in peace, but the WCS had a age 16 requirement to participate for many reasons. But Raynor did not turn 16 until just before the last major tournament of the year, which was, and to qualify for the BlizzCon Championship. The Reaper's now stuck. He got to the finals against Serral. Get off my creep! Okay, Brenda. Why? Why you gotta be like that? Sorry. But, he got to the finals against Serral. I had to have a dramatic pause. And he lost 4-3. If he had... That was the only way he could have qualified for the World Championship. Because he wasn't able to participate in any other tournaments because he was too young. He wasn't able to gain the points, the qualification points. But winning a premier, like one of the major events, was an instant qualification. He literally needed that and nothing less. So, even before that, he was obviously finding success. The fact that it was so dramatic is because of that. And since then, he's gone through his ups and downs. He won the World Championship in IM Katowice in 2021. Unfortunately, that one, I feel, was overshadowed because while it was held in person, it was still COVID times. So, they didn't have an audience for it. And I feel like... And also, he won the Esports World Cup, or whatever the Saudi Sports Washing Cup was called in 23, I think, before it was the World Cup, before they decided on that branding. For $400,000, I think was the prize pool, and he took home about half of it when he beat Cure in the World Championship. So, well, I believe IM Katowice was still the World Championship at that time. My point being, Raynor, well, for a long time, was up there with Serral and Clem, considered like the triumvirate of the top 3 players. Unfortunately, that is no longer quite the case. But he's been making real efforts for it again, as going to the grand finals against Hero in the All-Stars tournament and defeating Clem to get there. Still making very strong efforts, and oh my. The queens, is there, where's the overseer? There isn't. 3 queens will just kind of die. Mutas are the choice. As we survive through the early game with minimal losses right up until this exact moment. As Clem keeps the, no, my, oh, another queen is assassinated by the Frenchman. The Zergling's trying to get a wraparound, but the angle is really rough here. The Queen's still taking so much damage. And the Banshee's without enough HP left over, but there might be enough to take down one more Queen. Eventually, these units will be exhausted. as Clem gets absolutely everything out of these banshees. All the Hellions eventually die. But it's going to be the Mass Muta. The evolution chambers just started, the Baneling nest a little further along. The fourth base quite delayed. Did he spot the gases on the third? Clem did not. So... well, that was kind of what the queens are supposed to do, though. They delay and they throw themselves onto the fire, somewhat literally. So that way it's not drones or hatcheries that do so. And Clem is moving out. Maybe misreading this as a rush to hive or something along those lines. And this could be an absolute disaster, as Raynor has more than enough Zerglings, and he's gonna have 7+ mutas. There's no missile turrets at home. Here comes the push. Raynor's gonna have to decide whether he brings the mutas to crush this push or try to get some damage back at home. Or at Clem's home, to be clear. 1-1 is not quite done, but finishing momentarily for Clem. Absolutely no suspicions as the mutas swing in. Gonna get a lot of damage done on the SCVs, and by that I mean 3 of them, while the Marines come up. And Raynor, clearly focused on this side, moves the mutas into the main. A single missile turret, and, well, 3 mutas died while he was looking the other way. And unfortunately, well, while the mutas came out almost uncontested, Clem reacts in time. He knocks out the mutas, he knocks out the 4th base, and I think he comes out significantly ahead of this exchange, as even though the Spire is maybe is 5 seconds faster and 50-50 less, that doesn't make up for the fact that mutas are made out of paper mache and tears. So the Banshees coming in again will finally be knocked out of the sky. Fine, a little bit too close. But Clem manages to extract his push from the left side, and Raynor not even bothering to deal with it because it's too thorny a proposition. Clem has been able to put together the army he wants and the army he needs. He's got drilling claws on the way. 2-2 upgrades. The muta count is at 11 and counting. It sounded dumb in my head, but I had already committed to the sentence, so here we are. Ooh. The Banelings. Not an ideal trade, but takes out the siege tanks, which is an important part. 59 Marines against 10 mutas and 6 Banelings. Clem has enough Marines to just win the game right now. So he doesn't know that for sure, and it really does depend exactly on the angling. Gonna take down the rocks, just make it a little easier to move through, and then he decides not to. The Widowmines slam into the mutas, as they weren't staring at them for every split second that the mutas were moving, so therefore the Widowmines get the damage done. Knock out a couple more, and Raynor is scrambling. But the Mutaling Baneling, if he the main benefit is that if he wins a fight, he wins a fight. He doesn't just force the medevacs to retreat or the Marines to run off the creep. He will kill everything. That is the strength and weakness of the mutas. It's very hard to get that fight, but if he does, and now the Thor being dragged around, packed into the medevac, as only it can be. It doesn't even fit. All right. 2-2 is on the way for Raynor. It's already done for Clem. Kind of meandered through that, but the Burrow Banes immediately scanned. But the threat is there. The Thor is here. The mutas, a mild inconvenience in the main base. Is there an infestation pit? No. Raynor is still fully committed to the Mutaling Bane. He's up to 82 drones, 5 bases. Infestation pit finally starts. A few Widowmons taken out. The spread of the Widowmons is... Are there even any Zerg? Oh, he's got 66 Zerglings, but the vast majority on the other side of the map goes for the massive counterattack. Widowmine takes a bite, but not a big enough one to really stall this out. There's so many banelings. And the Widow Mines are already pre-burrowed, so Clem can't easily retreat. The Thor keeps getting caught on the wrong side of things. Multiple barracks taken out. The banelings on the creep! And Clem gets caught and killed. A whole bunch of the Marines caught with him. The Widow Mines are scattered, but kind of hung out to dry here. A magic box onto the Thor spreads out the mutas, and then the mutas run right into the Marines and die. But at least he took out the Thor, I guess. The Widow Mines helped take out some of the Marines. And Raynor, a mixed bag of a fight here, as more mutas will get knocked out by the Widow Mines scattered throughout the field. Even though they weren't part of the push, they still find some damage. Is there an Overseer anywhere? He comes back. He needs to deal with these. Unfortunately, by the time that Clem comes back around, he will not have cleared out the minefield, making it almost impossible. There's a baneling mine in the very center, where Clem is quite unlikely to scan. The Widow Mines are a bit more reliable in their effectiveness. Two now done. The scan on the main. There's no hive even started, even though the infestation pit is done, which means Clem absolutely knows how good his position is. All he needs is 3-3. He's scanning for multiple bases here, trying to get a beat on exactly what Raynor has. And he realizes all he needs to do is take middling fights. Never offer up enough of a target that Raynor can carry a fight through to do critical damage. The Baneling Mine might be able to undercut, but it's doubtful it'll kill enough Marines to it would have to get like 30 in order to really undercut the push. And Raynor doing what he can. The hive is halfway there. The mutas will chase down to the left side. The banelings will really help, but Clem actually just splits and stims and mostly holds. Though the Zerglings into the third base working on the wall. And Clem comes back to deal with this. The mutas will clean up the drop, but not exactly the quickest sweep. The changelings not necessarily helping here, but... And the Widow Mines, Raynor keeps selecting them, praying that they'll grow a missile to fire at the Marines and Marauders, but unfortunately they haven't figured out that technology yet. The lack of opposable thumbs certainly isn't helping. Though maybe the queens have. Moving on! What queens? The Thors. A huge counterattack yet again. This time the door's open. Gonna try to drag the Widow Mines into the Marines. Not really successful, but the third base is gutted. 9 more SCVs dead. Raynor still near 200 supply. He hasn't lost a base throughout all this. The Banelings rolling in. The Widow Mines unable to find much success, but with the Banelings exhausted, the Marines and Marauders are splitting behind the Thor. And more gets taken down. The counterattacks will continue until morale improves. Banelings rolling through. Only a couple more remain. Takes out the Thor. The muta count is so damn high. He might actually have enough to break this, especially with the medevacs nearly out of energy. Raynor making so much progress with the Zergling counters. He just continues sending it. And it's this level of commitment that, well, he keeps doubling down. Not sure what happened with the Baneling Mine. Clem still has a lot of... Oh my God! We need to see that again. Did he... How many Banelings? It wasn't that many, was it? That was... There's 6 of them. But... The angle... The medevacs always get in the way of all the action, which has been an annoyance throughout my career, but... Oh my. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Gets them all. Picks up, gets out. Just casual. And that's the kind of thing that's happening constantly across the map. That sometimes because of the medevacs in the way, sometimes because we're only human and Clem is something more. That's happening across the map. That is why Raynor has said Banelings are useless against Clem. Yet, it's better to have a mediocre tool than none at all. He needs something to deal with the critical mass of the Marines. And what's it gonna be? Who are you gonna call? You don't even need Ghostbusters. There's no ghosts. It's just Marines, Marauders, Mines, and Medevacs. I say just. Oh, he retargets the mine in the midst of everything. I mean, even easier than retargeting. Oh, he retargeted every mine to a Zergling further by, which is some of the most... Sweet mother of mercy. One more time. Clem is on absolute fire. Meanwhile, microing back. He sees the Baneling, says, oh, whatever. And, well, wait, there's more. Micro's back for the Widow. Oh my god!
Go!
How do you deal with that? Infestors. But he's gonna see the Infestor. The Infestors, they're not cheap. Raynor has 21 mutas that keep flying across the map, knocking down the medevacs. But if they're committed to Raynor's side of things, they can't be damaging Clem's economy, which is historically their best usage. Is Adrenal Glands done? Yes. But Raynor has not been able to scrape out any additional upgrades. This hatchery is badly bruised. He's only lost one throughout this game, but that may change momentarily. Another getting caught. And again, Clem will split. He'll stim. He'll micro back against the mutas before he's able to take out the base. The Marines and Marauders continue to march forward. The stims drags out some of the mines. And Clem, on top of it, Widow Mine takes a bite, retargets, hits a muta. Muta's in the main yet again, but reinforcements are there to defend. Clem, just unbelievable. Raynor doing a great job to keep up with him. But the mutas are struggling to find the critical damage they need. Usually, you need to cut off the reinforcements, whittle down the economy, and then eventually crush the army. But it doesn't really work very well when your mutas are getting outflanked by Marines. A planetary fortress, he retargets onto the Banes, knowing it's a suicide move, but the Banelings are as well. Widow Mines somehow find their way into the mineral line to the Prairie Dog micro, as Clem, meanwhile, he's microing the mines up and down. While he's moving across the map, the hatchery gonna take some hits, will be taken down easily. The Widow Mine is back, and he might 12 drones. Oh no, it's all coming apart. And some might argue it was never together. As again, Clem just on top of absolutely everything. The mutas, Raynor doing an incredible job of keeping him busy, dragging his attention away. But the attention per minute is so high. The Widow Mine's making great use of the lack of being omnipotent. The Thor! GG! 60 mutas dead. A very different sort of game than the style against Serral. An absolute bloodbath, but again, the Zerg spilling the majority of it. When Clem is good, he is unbeatable. I just, how do you deal with that? That's why the Infestors and Prayer are so often the choice, but wow. A disgusting, inspiring masterclass in peak Terran. And Clem, wow. Hopefully you enjoyed. Clean sweep against Serral. I believe that series was not quite as clean against Raynor. Maybe we'll get the rest of it soon, but hopefully you enjoyed as much as I did. I hope it made your day a little bit better. And if you got the means and motivation, you also check out Patreon or YouTube membership. But I hear liking and subscribing is still free, at least for now. And thank you to our mule tier patrons. Not that Clem needs any more mules, but Big Jig, Devin Door, Kate, Mario Suit. For those who don't know, I try to use about at least half of Patreon to support especially community tournaments like Wardy, Comeback TV, Cranky Ducklings, and more. If you don't know those names, you should. But at the very least, thank you to everyone here for the support. And if you haven't yet, you can check out this video that Jimmy picked out just for you. And I'll see you next time. I hope I made your day just a little bit better. Thank you for watching. Good luck, have fun. Stay tuned.